afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, genius economist, venture capitalist, and political analyst and strategist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on Ukraine is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It must be Wednesday, 6:30. Actually, it's Tuesday around 6:30. 6:30, Tuesday, 6:30, because I apologize that I can't include in today's session a very major event, Trump's what is it? Lecture? It's not a lecture.
Address to Congress.
Address to Congress. It's almost like a State of the Union, except that he's only in office about 4 weeks or 5 weeks or something. So it would be premature to give a State of the Union. He would have to give the State of the Union of Biden. So,
which he does every time he talks. Right.
Right. So,
saying how terrible it was.
So it should be a very intriguing talk and eye-opening talk, what he thinks about some of his own behavior and the impact it's having and the impact it will have. And in other words, especially since today was the first day, Tuesday, of the introduction of some of the tariffs, and a whole series of them will be rolling out over the next 2 months, and also the reaction to them by China, by Mexico, by Canada, by even many of our allies is going to start to impact. So it would be the perfect discussion this week, but since I'm scheduled to be on a TV show Wednesday evening, early evenings, so I couldn't do the show Wednesday, so we're pre-recording it with you, but next Wednesday I'm sure we'll get a chance to discuss.
Unless there's a whole new series of things.
Well, there undoubtedly will be, but we'll have a chance to discuss it. And also, there's always a response from the other party. There's somebody who's doing it, Senator Slotkin. Is she a senator?
I think a congresswoman.
Congresswoman?
Moderate Democrat from Michigan.
Slotkin. I think she's a Jewish lady too. Slotkin's a very Jewish name.
Could be.
So it's interesting that, just as an aside, the Jews are such an infinitesimal part of the world, and that they should be so influential in the news is statistically unpredictable and seemingly impossible, because Zelensky, who's interacting with Trump and the current administration over the war with Russia, Ukraine's war with Russia, is Jewish. The war in the Middle East, which is basically a war involving Israel more than any other nation, is certainly a Jewish leadership. So it's unbelievable. Also, even with the tariffs, the new president of Mexico, who hasn't given a decision as to how she plans to react, although she said she will react at tariffs is likewise Jewish, and the new president of Argentina is very pro-Israel and Jewish, and even talks about converting to Judaism. He doesn't have enough trouble. The guy has to become part of a group that's persecuted all the time. So there's no accounting for behavior. But anyway, it's great that an infinitesimal group of people, a nation, could matter so much, although the Jewish people would be much better off if they didn't matter, if they were homeless and hopeless and didn't encourage so much anti-Semitism, resentment for their success, for their achievements in this world, achievements that help all of humanity. You'd think there would be appreciation. Even when I see some of the African Americans that criticize the Jewish nation and Israel and so forth, fail to realize that the Jewish people were the major advocates for African Americans. The NAACP, National Association, NAACP, for Colored People, was founded by a bunch of Jewish leaders and Jewish lawyers. The Jews have always been very helpful and sympathetic to any underdog nation, or any nation going through problems. They're the first ones. Israel's the first one generally that sends help to people that are going through tsunamis or major natural disasters, fires, hurricanes. They're the first ones on the scene. And as a matter of fact, even with Ukraine, the minute the war with Russia started and Ukrainians were losing so many soldiers and citizens and having so many wounded and maimed and crippled, Israel set up a bunch of doctors from Israel in Ukraine and built a hospital for them. So it was not anything to do with their religion. There aren't that many Jews in Ukraine as a proportion of the population. And no other country did that. So they might have sent arms to help, but nobody sent doctors and hospitals, built hospitals to help them. Anyway, enough of that. That's a commercial for the Jews that hardly need more envy because they do good things. They win more Nobel Prize proportionately in proportion to their numbers in the world, develop more drugs that help humanity, more breakthroughs, start more new companies than any country in the world relative to their size. It's just an unbelievable people because all they were given was a little tiny Arab plot. I shouldn't say plot, desert plot in the Middle East that had very little, almost no natural resources, no oil all around them. Every country around them has tons of oil, and they had really nothing. The quality of the land they received was left destitute for generations, even for eons. So, and in spite of that, they've made major breakthroughs. What was the name of that book? Startup Nation. Was written by somebody about how much they've achieved from a start of total destitution, you know. So anyway, so before going through any more about this, I want to point out again that what we discuss every week are the events of the current events, the events of the week or the month of the year, political, economic, and by virtue of that agenda, it's inevitable that we're going to be depressed ourselves, and the discussion is going to be depressing because news, as we know it in our lives, is overwhelmingly down, depressing. Murders, wars, pandemics, the things that make the headlines are not good news. I mean, I haven't seen a headline where it said the class of, what is this now, 2025 had outstanding grades, broke all records or something. That's not news. I mean, it might make it somewhere into the newspaper, but certainly not the headlines. The headlines are all, mass murders, serial killers, um, outrageous tragedies, families that are killed at home without any rationale. Or, it's just so depressing. Fires that wipe out communities, people lose their homes, all their valuable, irreplaceable possessions, all the things they've saved up over the years to give them fond memories and even memories of parents, great parents, great grandparents, and so forth. So, by way of introduction, it means that we're going to be talking about things that are likely to be a downer. They're going to depress us talking about it, and you all, my cohorts, who I love, my favorite people in the whole world, because you're always taking the time, many of you, not all of you, but many of you, to send me notes, some of them critical, many of them critical, or incisive in terms of correcting something I may have said. But all of them, even the ones that are the most critical, I find helpful because it helps me rethink my positions and modify them, or at least find support for what I said and try to argue back, even though I'm not in touch with the person who wrote the note or wrote the letter or called them. So before I launch, I like to give you something related to being happier in life. In other words, so I know we're going to probably make you less happy by talking about the events that occurred this week, especially if they were political. Because even if you're on the right side, there's another side that is vehemently against. Families have been broken up, lovers have broken up over political positions in the last generation, in the last quarter century. It's just unbelievable how strongly people have come to feel, even though many of them don't even know very much about politics. Yeah, when they're interviewed on the street, most people are asked, "Who's Vance?" Who happens to be the vice president of the country under Trump now. They'll say, "Well, is that the third baseman for the Mets or something, or is that the quarterback of the Jets?" Most people, sadly, maybe it's not that important, but it's sad that so few people are up on current events. At least in my time, we used to have that as a major subject, current events. So to give you a lift before or some idea about it, how to be happier, one, I wrote a book to deal with that called Happiness. It's on your screen. Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. And on the bottom of that cover, it says, how to be happy no matter what. And that's what I want to share with you. And I want to be a missionary for that to my community, to my family, to all the people I love, to all of humanity, to Americans, my community, my fellow Americans, and my fellow human beings. So that was the intention of the book, and I hope to do it. And most importantly, the audience that listens to me and tolerates me deserve to be pumped up and get some happiness if I can make them happier. So I like to start by giving you some ideas. I can't do that, in 2 minutes introduction. So I would advise you, if you have the inclination, and you should, to get a copy of Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back, because I've gotten so much positive reviews, so much thanks and appreciation for people tell me that it has actually improved the happiness, the degree of happiness in their lives. So get a copy of the book, and I'm so sure that you too would appreciate it, because it's been universal, the feedback of the appreciation. One chief executive of a company, as I mentioned before, has sent it out now, has sent out maybe 1,000 copies already. He sends out during the course of a year maybe 100,000 gifts, because he's connected with hundreds, thousands of employees, thousands of vendors that are suppliers, thousands of customers. So he has a lot of people that he wants to be remembered by. And so he sends out tons of gifts every year around Christmas time or other special occasions. He even has a list of people's birthdays. He's very on top of things. So he tells me in all the time he's been giving gifts, the most he ever gets is a thank you, if they remember that, to bother to call him to thank him. And he never hears another word about it. And some of them most of them actually failed to call and say thank you. So, but he says with this book, people are calling him months later and referring to the book as a gift that they received and how much they're benefiting from it. That one family leader said he has a what do you call it now? Not a habit, but a custom, a ritual to read one page every day. It's 365 pages of ideas on how to be happy, humor, jokes, every kind of any kind of indication I've had during the course of my many years. I'm only lacking three years to 100, and I've had a lot of opportunities to die from worries, worried to death over the years. I've been faced by, as we all are, if we live long enough as human beings, with things that are disappointments, letdowns, reversals, tragedies, and we have to live through them, and some people literally worry to death or lose their capacity, their mental capacities. I know families where they lost a child, and the mother who lost the child wound up in a mental institution, and the father wound up with being a drug addict or an alcoholic, even though they had the blessings of two nice children, and besides the one that passed away. So there's enough that we go through, and if you can learn how to handle that, what happens to you, it's not what happens to you that's so the most important. It's how you react to what happens to you, and how you overcome the negatives, and still make a great life for yourself. If you still can count your blessings and appreciate what you have. So what I offer you is the best deal you could get of any purchase you would ever make. I can't think of anything more. Television, they always say, if you try this supplement to make you stronger or cure something, and if it doesn't work, you can return the product and send us your purchase slip, and we'll replace your cost, replace what you spent, and you can even keep the jar or the cure or something. You don't even have to. So I've done one better. I said, if you don't enjoy it, if you don't find it that it was of benefit to you, if it was really something that you're pleased that you spent the money on, send me even if it was a gift, get a hold of the purchase slip and send it to me, and I will send you double the purchase price. So, and you can keep the book, and the benefits it still might provide. I still hope it will provide. So that's the fastest way to do it. But right now, one quickie that I always add, it's just you're the boss. You decide to be happy, and you can make them happy, yourself happy. Nobody can do it better for you. Other people can try. They can tell you jokes. They can give you pep talks. But you've got to be your best friend and give yourself the pep talks and lift yourself out of the terrible moods, and don't allow your brain to focus on the negatives that occurred. For some reason, our mind takes us back to situations that were hurtful, that were reversals in life. We lost all our money one time, and we think about it again. The hurt comes back. So the first thing is, the minute you go to such a state of focus, shift gears. Do something that lifts you out of that mood. Don't allow your mind to keep you in that mood. I say, I've said it a number of times. For me, what works when I get real depressed and I'm sitting there in my study or in my bedroom getting depressed, I decide I'm going to shift gears. I run down to my freezer in the kitchen. I take out a quart of Haagen-Dazs chocolate ice cream, a bunch of whipped cream and chopped nuts, and maybe a cherry or something, and just making that sundae, that chocolate sundae, just making it makes me, and looking at it makes me feel better. And then once I take the first bite, I forget all about it, all the trouble in the world, and I'm smiling and lapping it up. So it doesn't have to be the same for you. It could be calling up your best friend and chatting with him, or visiting with your best friend, or making love, or calling up your local favorite restaurant and tell them to send over your best meal, or watching a movie that you love or reading a great book. There's lots of ways to shift gears and feel a lot better. So temporarily, that's the best. Absent, you're getting 365 days of assistance, of training, of education on how to be happier. So be happy, don't worry, be happy, don't worry. And remember, you're in control. If you're in control, only go to places that make you happy. Not physically places, but, places in your mind that make you happy. Okay, so without further ado, we're privileged to have with us once again. I'm so pleased because he's such a great guest. I invite him back regularly because he gives me great challenges. He aggravates the hell out of me sometimes because he rarely agrees with me. He's a brilliant electrical engineer, graduated from a top Ivy League school, Cornell, has a graduate degree in engineering from another great school, Stanford University on the West Coast. And he was a graduate, an alumni of mine years later, because he's much younger, at Harvard Business School. The number one, in my book, the number one business school in the United States, indeed in the whole world. There are others. Stanford is great. Chicago is great. Chicago University. A lot of people swear by Wharton. I'm not saying Northwestern, but just to give you by way of background, he's got all the great degrees that are a tribute to him and his and the resume that he presents. So without further ado, it's great to have you back, Leonard. And why don't you launch the program?
Thanks, Morty.
You could also discuss, incidentally, because I know your agenda didn't have it, what you anticipate tonight's speech by Trump will be. Because that's an interesting, I mean, for sure he'll be bragging about what a great job he's doing because he's already said.
Well, I think definitely one of the things he's going to be talking about is something that's been in the news a lot in the last week, which is this whole Ukraine affair.
Yeah.
So I think how he presents that, we'll discuss that as we, dissect the events of the past few days. We saw on Friday President Zelensky meet in the Oval Office. They had all of the chairs and flags and dinner, in fact, all prepared as a celebration to what they anticipated to be a signing of a deal between the United States and Ukraine regarding mineral rights. And
regarding doing a peace deal with the end of the war with Russia.
Yeah, although I think that the signing and pomp and circumstance was going to be around consummating the deal as a prelude and beginning to what we saw instead was somewhat of a...
It was great television.
As Trump said.
Trump said that.
Yes.
Because he had a live battle.
It was like
Vance,
the Jerry Springer show almost without
right.
The chairs being thrown and the punches being
with
thrown.
Vance.
But it was
they
close.
Actually did throw punches. Vance and Zelensky threw punches at each other.
Afterwards?
No, during the fight.
Well, I mean, I didn't see them actually slug each other, but...
they Trump was keeping them apart, but they jumped. Zelensky jumped at Vance, and Vance responded. It was great, you know. It was too short. You know, it only lasted one round, but
Yeah, they should have kept going until someone was knocked out.
Yeah, it was better television than the rest of it.
Right. So there was a winner by decision, but not by knockout.
Right. No,
So I guess let's start with a big question.
Draw. It wasn't a decision.
Yeah. Let's start with the big question. What's your take on, did Zelensky behave badly in that meeting, or, was he provoked and ambushed by Vance and Trump?
Well, it depends on one's view, as always with politics and politicians. Maybe it was improper for him to become. I don't remember any president coming to the White House in a black shirt, or not even shirt, and an outfit that was not what you see somebody walk into the White House to meet with the president. They usually
Except
dressed
Winston
in their
Churchill
best.
did.
Did
he?
Yeah.
During World War II, Winston Churchill used to meet in his army fatigue.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, even army.
Well, that's what I think that supposedly was, some kind of his commander outfit or something. But yeah, it did look rather.
It also looks
business casual.
It also looks like a prisoner's outfit. All no tie, no collar. But anyway, that's his style. So so that might have been.
I mean, the other person who wears rather casual attire is Elon Musk, and he.
Well, if you're the richest,
Trump doesn't seem to object to that.
If you're the richest man in the world, you could dress however you like. No, he wears jackets and stuff. No,
typically he's got maybe a coat, but it's a T-shirt underneath it. Definitely not a suit and tie.
But not as depressing as an all black. But I mean, that's.
Well, should that be an issue? I mean, should that be?
But I think Vance took that and indicated that he thought that was disrespectful. So it started on
I mean, it wasn't smart on Zelensky's part, I think, because how hard is it to wear? I mean, if you're gonna read the room, if you're gonna be in a potentially hostile environment too, which he knew, right? And he knows that these guys are not super fans of his.
And you're going to be filmed on television,
right? You might,
the president,
but, so I do agree that was not a smart move. I'm not sure it deserves, getting kicked out of the Oval Office over, but it wasn't smart.
No, he wasn't kicked out for that. But Vance took it as.
So was it? You think he was ambushed?
Vance took it as being disrespectful. So I said that, but when you start off at that level, then it elevates,
Yeah, although I think Vance's bigger issue with disrespect was, one, not apologizing and not thanking the United States and his two hosts there for everything that they and the country has done for Ukraine.
The last vice president was Vance too, wasn't he? Under
Pence.
Pence. Vance
was a
secretary. Do you know what Vance is in Yiddish?
A bug, Vance.
A bed bug. Yeah, Vance.
Yeah. But no, Cyrus Vance was a Secretary of State for Carter. There was a Cyrus Vance.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
and his son became district attorney in New York.
Okay. So they were Vance. But so in this case, I think he was more upset that they didn't gush thankfulness.
Yeah.
And also that they were like pushing back on them in what they thought was a public forum. This is a televised event.
Yeah, Vance said that you
You
shouldn't
know,
do
should
that
you be
in
litigating
front of
this
the
in front of the American
American.
people? I mean, do you think he's right? Do you think Vance has a point?
Well, I think it's what American politics is. We turn it on, and there's wars between the different parties at very aggressive, belligerent levels, unseen ever before.
I mean, I think people ask, should it have been televised? I think that the event is okay to be televised. The mistake that I think both sides did, as soon as it was getting off the rails, they should have like not let it go. Right. I mean, Zelensky, all countries and allies disagree all the time about strategy and terms and things. I mean, they say that happened all the time.
It isn't always as an emotional an issue.
But sometimes it may. We just don't know because it's not. It's done in the back room, not in front of the TV, not in front of the cameras.
Very few things are as emotional as you are. In the case of Zelensky, losing hundreds of thousands, I think, of his fellow citizens and millions that have left the country. So it's definitely very emotional.
For sure. But in terms of, having an argument with, other world leaders, if you're going to disagree, I think you want to, that's not the forum to, disagree that way. What a lot of people say is he should have just said, thanks for having me here. I look forward to, your help.
Yeah.
And let's sign that agreement. Where's the salmon?
Right. If he could be that controlled, but that would be the right way. But if it's such an emotional meeting.
But so I applaud Zelensky for that.
He was talking about his very survival. Right. He even has, in the process, even volunteered to resign his presidency to get the war over with. But Trump said he doesn't want to end the war. So he says, you can't do a deal with somebody that doesn't want to end the war, just like with the Palestinians. They have no desire to end the conflict between Israel, even if Israel would give them a second.
Well, I mean, you think Zelensky doesn't want to end the war, or he doesn't want to end the war without guarantees that he will have, security?
Well,
now maybe that's not for him to decide.
Remember what's his name kept saying, the president.
The cards.
You don't have the cards. You're not in a position to dictate.
Right.
You want to end the war so you stop losing more people.
Right. So
I agree with Trump.
That's not a strong position to be in, right?
I think.
Although when Zelensky says, there have been many times in history where we've made deals with Putin on ceasefires, on prisoner exchanges, on a bunch of different things, and they're just ignored. So Putin is not the one really to be trusted on a handshake or a written agreement or anything for that matter, it seems, historically. So I do see his point that unless we have, some sense, what's the point of a agreement that's not going to be abided by? It's not going to be.
The point is, you stop the killings right now. Hopefully, look, I take issue with the United States when I've mentioned this several times on this program. When the Soviet Union broke up with a lot of countries, not only Ukraine, but maybe 20 different countries, and they let them all go free, separate, even though they were in control. And the United States said it was such a great thing and such a victory, and a big dividend for our defense spending. We won't have to spend so much anymore because the whole thing was against the Cold War. And then instantly, even though we had no signed agreement, we acted as if they were still the enemy. The next period, within a not too long period, we had put aggressive military offensive weapons on the border of Poland, facing Russia and facing Putin, and Hungary. I mean, we took that kind of thing when Cuba invited Russia to bring stuff they hadn't attacked anything, and we almost had a world war over there. So I can understand that. So whether you sign something or not, there's appropriate behavior after something is dramatically beneficial to everybody, and the United States didn't demonstrate that kind of appreciation. Or they didn't have the United States didn't lose one soldier, and they got what they wanted. So at least they should have been invited at that time into the team. So they're not treated as an enemy. If you're treated as an enemy, you're going to act as an enemy. And the United States in recent years has had that thing, like we must need an enemy, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, whether it's over Taiwan or Ukraine. I mean, this idea that peace through strength that we keep talking about, that we need more defense spending, because the stronger we are, the less wars will be on, less peace through strength. That's, if there's any evidence out there that that's bull, there's no stronger defense, stronger military nation, or in the history of the human race, than the United States is, and we're in more wars. Despite that, we spend more than all the rest of the nations put together, and we export more of the equipment that fight wars, every one of them. And so it's not peace through, it's peace through strength if you don't have to use the strength. I remember years ago, Meshulam Reckless, I don't know if you ever heard of him. He was a big conglomerate. He grew his companies through a lot of acquisitions, took on a lot of debt. So he says one time he was negotiating the acquisition for a company, and they said, well, we understand you're in debt, you have a lot of debt. So he says, what are you talking about? I took him to the window and I showed him my army. My army being my balance sheet. And it was full of cash. The fact that all the cash was pledged, what do you call that? Collateralized, not as a word for it. It was tied up.
Securitized or
Pledged? Yeah, there's with a C, it starts with a C.
Collateral. Yeah.
It's like collateral. He didn't have access to it. But he said, what are you talking about? Look at all the cash I got. I said, yeah, you're right. So he didn't have to use it. But if you got to use it, if he had to say, okay, you write me a check against it, he would have to walk away. So he just pointed to his arm. So if we did that, if we used it as a way to avoid conflict and wars, that would be right. But we're like a guy who says, knock that straw off my shoulder, and then you punch him in the eye because you're challenging him. Why?
So what do you do what do you do if you're Europe? I mean, Europe has been, not not spending a lot on military for years now, relying implicitly on the U.S. for their defense.
Yeah.
I think what they're seeing now, and you see, kind of a scramble and a panic going on, because if it's even possibly true that the U.S. is, not inclined to defend someone, a non-NATO, or help a non-NATO country like Ukraine, what does that mean for Europe? I mean, if you're Europe, do you take it into your own hands and ramp up your defense spending because you're no longer able to rely on the U.S. to defend you?
Well, I think I've said this before. I think the first thing is to maximize your diplomacy effort. And in this case, I pointed out to my followers that Putin said, if you don't invite Ukraine to join NATO, NATO being more than 20 countries, that the United States pledges that if they're attacked, the United States will go to war on their behalf with them. So that's like we had with Cuba. We said, it was a reasonable request. Why invite them in? You have Poland there, you have Hungary there, you have right on their border. So all he had to do was say...
Right, but that's what he had to do. We're dealing with the now. What do you do now if you're Europe? Europe's worried that if Putin takes Ukraine, which he may or may not, that Europe is next. Yeah, so what do you do if you're Europe?
But remember, that's in...
Do you not worry because it's the U.S. is part of NATO?
That's our paranoid. Remember, Russia is the one that ended the belligerency. They folded and gave up all their countries and everything. So what do you mean? What do you do if you? It's in their mind that they're in danger.
So you don't think that there's if you were...
It said there was a reason, and the reason was a
but
good
I'm talking
one.
About now. If you're Europe today, do you build up your military, or do you worry that Russia's going to... No. So you wouldn't be worried that Russia's going to invade?
You could build up your military as a precautionary, and sometimes when you're paranoid, that's a good reason to be paranoid. But I don't see Russia doing it. He hasn't done it. How long has he been president? For how many years? Has he attacked any European country?
Well, except Ukraine, but that's...
I said before this.
Yeah. But Ukraine isn't NATO. So, I mean, I don't disagree that I do think Putin will, try to take over, the Eastern European non-NATO countries like Ukraine, but I don't think he'll mess with NATO. I don't think he'll come into Poland like everyone says.
I think
Poland's next. I don't think he's going to do
Europe is paranoid if they think that. Because it would be like when we were involved with Cuba, if all the South American countries and Central American countries started to build up, because Russia's come into this part of the world. That doesn't say what really happened. They've been peaceful for many years. They haven't attacked another country for many years. They had a reason to attack, and they said, here's the reason we're attacking. If you don't invite them in, we don't want the United States to sign up. And if they get involved, Ukraine with Russia, that the United States will be committed under the NATO rules to go to war against Russia. I can understand that. It's great to make that scary thing. The fear is a great thing to motivate. But there's no evidence that, even though they're always saying how frightening Russia is, how frightening China is. How many wars has China been in? I don't remember there being in any wars. We look at them as, we got to be careful for China. Every other country got to be careful about the United States, because that's the one that's in most wars.
I think not with the West, but historically, I do believe China was an aggressor in the Pacific. But
where?
I'm not, with other Asian countries.
What country did they take over?
I don't know that all the ones.
They didn't take over the Philippines. They didn't take over Australia. They didn't take over New Zealand. They didn't take over Korea. They didn't. They didn't. I'm saying it's a mindset that we've sold. It's like we need an enemy. I wish we'd find somebody in Mars so that we could all together, all the countries on Earth would be against some fictitious enemy.
So what's the best way to negotiate an end? Do you start by by turning off eliminating the sanctions? Do you start by stopping weapons or arms sales to Ukraine?
I would do exactly what Trump is doing. Get together with Putin.
Do you first tell Ukraine we're going to stop sending any military
start
support?
A conversation get a feeling of what it would take to end the war. If Russia says, well, we want all of Ukraine.
But do you stop sending military support before you do that?
Yes.
You do.
You stop.
See, I don't agree with that because, and I don't agree it was a good idea for Secretary of Defense Hegseth to say that Ukraine will never be able to go back to its pre-2014 borders. Even if it's true, I don't think that's the best way to negotiate. When you negotiate, you don't give away your positions before you negotiate. I think you zip it up and you wait till you get to the table. So I think they made some negotiating mistakes. I don't think you tell when Putin is sitting there thinking, they've already said they're not going to go back to those borders. They're already cutting off aid. They're already talking about eliminating the sanctions on me. When you negotiate, you got to get something back.
Could have said that in a private meeting and believe that. And that's okay. You're right. You don't say it so the other side...
Wait, I just want to record that. Those two words. And then play it back. I mean, that's just a negotiation strategy.
You're right. I don't think you announce it to the world because it's. It doesn't help.
They're right. At the end of the day, Hegseth is right. They're not going back to the 2014 borders.
He would have, if he had in a private meeting, said it to Zelensky.
Absolutely.
Hit him with reality.
But that's all. Again, that's 100%. And that's not what happened.
I'm not saying
Hegseth was out there in public telling, and presumably Russia watches TV.
I'm not saying there wasn't stupidity, and then the stupidity
there frequently is,
and the stupidity was on the United States part.
Frequently is. No, I mean Putin. The Russians are sitting there, just sitting there like this, like let them do all the. This is just implode by itself.
They don't realize that
fall off by itself.
There's a cost to talk. You open your mouth. Silence is golden.
That's right. What do you say? When you don't say anything, people will think you're stupid.
Right. Once you open your mouth,
they know it for sure.
All doubt is. That's true.
So
there's no reason for him to say that in front of the whole nation, because that's like you've just indicated that
right. And for somebody
that somebody's got to settle like that,
exactly.
But
and for someone who prides himself on the art of the deal, I mean, I'm surprised. I was just surprised when that happened because
Trump didn't say it though.
I'm saying, but but it was Trump who is suspending the military aid to Ukraine today, and is Trump who's saying he's considering lifting the sanctions on Russia. Again, I mean, that's fine to do, but do it as part of the negotiation,
yours
right?
is a good question in this sense. How could I support the United States continuing to send armaments to Israel and not send armaments to Ukraine? But I'm saying that at some juncture, the United States did force a ceasefire and went along with forcing a ceasefire. So he's, by saying, I won't supply you with armaments, he's saying, I want you to sit down now and start to negotiate.
Right. But again, that's a private conversation, because then, that's something that is known between the parties behind the table without them knowing.
Nothing is private with what's his name, including all the sex life.
That's true.
Of Trump.
So the other thing that happened related to this, which I want to get your take on, last week, I believe, there were a number of UN resolutions, one of which was a resolution to condemn Russia's actions in Ukraine. And for the first time, the U.S. voted with Russia and North Korea on the no side, where
saying what?
Saying that they are not going to condemn Russia's actions in Ukraine. Obviously, all the other Western countries and democracies voted to do it. Voted yes, although I'm not sure if it actually made it to the floor. But whatever. The point being, how stunning it was to see the U.S. and North Korea and Russia on one hand, and on an issue where all of Western Europe and much of the rest of the world was on the other hand. So, I mean,
I understand. I understand Trump's. I don't know if it was a wise decision to go against what you consider your allies, but I can understand that if he wants to be a peacemaker, you don't start off showing that you're against.
Right. I mean, one thing that Trump says over and over is and I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing, he refuses to trash talk Putin in public, because he does realize it makes it harder to bring people to the table when you trash. That's why I think they just should have abstained and not voted no. I don't think voting alongside North Korea and Russia
he wants to win. They don't understand. He wants to win Putin's concurrence or cooperation to end this in a good manner. He's not interested in the intricacies along the way. And by doing that, he made a friend of Putin, and now he could get him to sit down and talk. He could still be angry afterwards. Just announcing things to make your allies happy. If you're going to go to war, then supply the troops. But it doesn't benefit the United States to criticize at this juncture, to criticize Putin. If he wants to set up a meeting to make peace, he doesn't start off.
Right. Well, it's one thing to criticize, and it's another thing to support.
No, they condemned Russia, and he didn't want to start off condemning Russia.
Well, that's why I would have abstained. I just wouldn't have I wouldn't have taken a view, you know.
He did. It's tantamount to abstain.
Not really, because there were other.
It's no, but it's if you abstain, then it's a kind of a agreement that you don't disagree with it. Why should you? Why can't you say no? I don't. I'm not going to go there now. You know, it's not useful for the process.
But that's
For
why
the diplomatic process.
That's true. That's why you don't say anything instead of affirmatively saying no, Russia wasn't bad, because I don't think
I can understand why he would do that. By abstaining, he doesn't win Putin's support and loyalty. And this way, you're right. Look, the Democrats say he's a Putin fan. He's against the United States. If you want to get the guy's attention and cooperation, be his friend. Go in as his friend and say, look, I'm your friend, and here's what I'm recommending to you. The best way to solve this is such, and we'll see if you could do that. I think his actions up to now are conducive to bring in peace. And starting fights and with words is not conducive to ending the. I believe if he's going to get it done, I believe he's going to get a peace deal done on terms that are not.
You think Zelensky will be part of that, or he'll be gone by then?
Who?
Do you think Zelensky will be part of that, or will be gone by then?
He'll be part of it.
You don't think he's going to resign or be forced out?
No, he'll agree to it.
Before resigning, you think he'll agree rather than resign or force out?
I think that.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think he could make an agreement between the two of them on some basis. If he says Russia should get all of Ukraine, then he won't go along, and there won't be a peace, even if the United States and Russia work it out. So there's going to be some compromise that Russia keeps some part of what they gained in this war, but not much more. And Zelensky has to realize that he can win this war, and there's going to be a price. And if he wants to still fight, the price is going to be much more enormous.
All right. Well, we're about out of time, so we'll see answers to some of those in a couple hours at the joint session of Congress.
Yeah, we didn't have a chance.
As it plays out over the next week, and we'll have a lot more to talk about.
We didn't have an opportunity to talk probably what is the most important issue in front of us right now, eminently, and that is the introduction of tariffs and what the implications are going to be. We'll do that next week.
Yep,
because that's a major issue.
Well, we agree too much on that, so that's not too interesting.
Yeah, if we agree, it's got to be terrible. The audience.
We need to get
our audience back. Who's our audience
very pro tariff.
Our audience doesn't want to hear us agree. They'll say, "What's wrong with you, Davis?" Or "What's wrong with you, Carter?"
Yeah. All right. So, thanks for an interesting hour, as always, and we'll be.
Thank you. You make the program. I just join you. Anyway, thank you for joining us, my lovely cohorts. Please take my advice. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Stay in control of what you think. I think only positive things. Think optimistically. Good things are going to happen in the future, even though right now it seems like it's the end of the world. Even then, remember, good things will happen in your life if you let it. If you take this within the experiences of life that occur, many of which are negative, but overcome them and move on to bigger and better things. People have had the worst tragedies and then turn out to have remarkably great lives and productive lives. And if the minute you finish thinking about it, even the worst tragedy, if you look at your blessings, if you say, oh my God, yes, I'm devastated, but I just looked at my two kids, how gorgeous they are, how sweet they are. I still have them. I have my wife. Yeah, I fight with her. She aggravates me a lot of time. But to be in love the way I am with my wife and with my kids, they can't take that away from me. So that's something that I have, and I got to build on that. Build on the things that you have. Have a great week. Build on what you have, and count your blessings. And if you want to know what your blessings are, just wake up in the morning and see if you open your eyes, and if you see the world, the colors, the nature. That's the miracle of life, that you could enjoy the best things in life for free. Your eyesight, and we take it for granted. If you lose your money, then you have something specific. So now you got something to be really angry, disappointed, pissed off at God, or pissed off at your bad luck, or something. And that's not what it's about. It's about overcoming the inevitable adversities that happen to every human being. I don't know anybody that's ever lived, no matter how great, people that from the biblical characters, everybody, that didn't go through so much aggravation, and notwithstanding that, achieved so much for their descendants, for their junior, subsequent generations. Be happy, don't worry. And every day that you get up, say, every way and every day I feel better and better and better. Psych yourself up. It's important to psych yourself up. Be your best friend. I'm your best friend. And if you're not going to be happy, I'm going to come over there and club you and you knock some brains into you. Because I hate to do that, because I'm a non-aggressive person. And you might beat me up. I'm not that powerful. Anyway, especially at this age. So, God bless you. Have a wonderful week. I look forward to being with you next Wednesday at 6:30. Bye.